Hi, I'm Kendall.
And I'm Jamie.
And today we're here with
Dan Ellsberg.
And so first of all, we're wondering what compelled you to release the Pentagon Papers?
I knew that the war was going to go on and get bigger, even though people generally believed that Nixon had gotten elected in order to end it. But I knew from people working for Nixon that he intended to try to win it by making threats that I was sure would fail, and then that he would carry them out and the war would get bigger, which is what happened. He increased the bombing. He went back to bombing the North and took troops out very slowly. But the war went on after he got in for another 6 years. He was out before it ended. But almost 30,000 Americans died and hundreds of thousands of Vietnamese. That's what I was trying to avert.
And do you have any regrets now about that, or do you feel like you made all the right decisions?
No, I do regret very much that I didn't release the documents that I had in the Pentagon, which later were part of the Pentagon Papers, the study. When I had them when I was working in the Pentagon in 1964, I think then there was a real chance that the war could have been avoided altogether. It was based so much on lies, and the prospects were so bad, as people understood in part inside, that I think that if I'd put those documents out at the beginning, there might well not have been any war. So that's a very great regret.
Yeah.
So, what was your reaction when you were told that you might spend the rest of your life in jail?
Well, I was told that when I got an indictment for 12 felony counts, each count worth 10 years and one 5 years, so a total possible of 115 years in prison. But when I copied the Pentagon Papers almost 2 years earlier and gave them to the Senate, I already believed I'd spend my life in jail for doing that. So there was no surprise when that indictment came down.
And the movie that we're about to see, do you think that it really does a good job of covering the story that happened?
It's only an hour and a half, and it covers my whole life in a way, and especially the last 10 years of the war. So there was a lot they had to leave out, but they did a very good job of selecting and compressing, and the newsreel footage that they found is just amazing. It's very hard for me to bear watching now, seeing all the bombing and the sad faces of the Vietnamese losing their homes. But they really did get the story quite well. I think they did a good job. I didn't know whether they would or not till we saw it.
That's great.
Have you seen it?
Not yet. We're about to.
Yeah. So, when we do see it, what's one thing that you would like us to take away from it?
Well, the fact that it was really people outside the government, not much older than yourselves, a little older, but not that much older, who were critical in keeping a lid on the war and keeping it from being very much worse than it was. It was terrible, but it could have been much larger and much longer had there not been an anti-war movement. But there was in those days a youth movement. We don't really see it so much now. It wasn't just on the war. It was the free speech movement, the civil rights movement, largely youth, movement against the House Un-American Activities Committee. So, and then that grew into other liberation movements, black liberation, gay liberation, women's liberation, very much so. So with all those coming together, it had a very great influence. Nowadays, there really isn't a youth movement of that sort or any other. So everybody's going along, and I'm afraid the history is about to be repeated, very likely. I could say unless there was a movement, but that's not likely to grow in the next month. And that's when Obama may make a terrible mistake, of which the president I worked for, Lyndon Johnson, made when I was working for him in July of 1965, when he went for an open-ended, indefinite war, which he knew was likely to be a stalemate, a bloody, escalating stalemate. My guess is that President Obama knows very well that there is no prospect for a real victory or success in Afghanistan, and yet he fears the consequences to him politically if he got out, if he cut losses and just withdrew. So I think what he's likely to do is what Johnson did, send enough troops to keep the military from resigning and attacking his policy, calling him a loser and quitter. And unfortunately, that's a tragic result because it could go on indefinitely.
All right. Thank you.
There's a scene in the movie that you might enjoy that I could reproduce for you right now for a moment. The way we used to win hearts and minds in Vietnam was to do things like this for the children of Vietnam, which they liked. That was, there's a scene of me doing this in the movie, and it was very popular. And That's how we won the war. Except we didn't. Okay, you'll see that, something like that in the movie.
Okay, thank you so much.
All right, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Very good questions.
Yeah, it was nice meeting you. Thank you.
Thanks.
Good work. In fact, I think it's very good for middle schoolers to see this movie, really. See if you agree at the end.
All right.
I think that's just the right age. Somebody said they should see this at the Kennedy School for Government at Harvard. I said, too late.
Yeah.
They're too committed to getting ahead and to earning, getting a good career and getting security clearances and whatnot. I think the kids your age, young men and women your age, will really realize from this that you can make a difference if you're prepared to risk a good career.
Yeah.
This is not a way to get ahead in the movie, but it is a way to maybe save many lives.
Yeah. Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you.
again.